France had the most powerful army in the world in 1940. 6 weeks later, Paris was under Nazi occupation. How did this happen? In May 1940, France was considered invincible. They had more tanks than Germany, more soldiers, better equipment, and they had spent over 3 billion francs building the most advanced defensive system the world had ever seen. The Maginot Line was supposed to make France unconquerable. Instead, it became the most expensive military failure in history. This is the story of how France fell in just 42 days. The year is 1939. Europe is holding its breath. Hitler has already taken Austria and Czechoslovakia without firing a shot. Poland is next on his list, and everyone knows that if Poland falls, France and Britain will have no choice but to declare war. But France isn't worried, not really. The French military is the strongest in Europe. They have 900,000 men under arms with another 5 million in reserve. They have 3,000 tanks compared to Germany's 2,500. Their air force has 1,400 aircraft. On paper, they match or exceed Germany in every category. And then there's the Maginot Line. This fortress system stretches 450 kilometers along France's border with Germany. It cost 3 billion francs to build. That's roughly $40 billion in today's money. The line consists of massive concrete bunkers, underground railways, living quarters for thousands of soldiers, ammunition depots, hospitals, and everything an army needs to survive a siege. The bunkers are reinforced with steel and concrete thick enough to withstand direct hits from the heaviest artillery shells. Machine gun positions cover every approach. Artillery can fire in any direction. Tank traps and obstacles stretch for miles. Some sections of the line go 7 stories underground. The French military believes this fortress is impenetrable, and they're probably right. There's just one problem. The Maginot Line doesn't cover the entire border. It stops at the Belgian frontier. The northern border with Belgium is left mostly undefended. The French have a reason for this. Belgium is an ally. The flat terrain of northern France is perfect for mobile warfare, and the French don't want to build fortifications that might offend the Belgians or suggest they won't defend Belgian territory. Plus, there's the Ardennes Forest. This thick woodland stretches along the border between France, Belgium, and Luxembourg. French military planners believe the Ardennes is impassable to modern armies. The forest is too dense. The roads are too narrow. No general would be stupid enough to try to push an armored division through it. Right. September 1, 1939. Germany invades Poland. The world watches in horror as the Wehrmacht demonstrates a new kind of warfare. They call it Blitzkrieg, lightning war. Poland has a respectable army, 1 million men, cavalry units with a proud tradition, but they're crushed in weeks. The German tanks don't fight the way tanks fought in World War I. They don't support infantry. They race ahead in concentrated formations, punching through weak points, surrounding entire armies before they can react. German dive bombers scream down from the sky, destroying communications, creating panic. Behind the tanks come motorized infantry and trucks, moving faster than any army in history. The Poles try to retreat and regroup, but there's nowhere to go. The Germans are already behind them. Poland falls in 35 days. Britain and France declare war on Germany, but they don't attack. This is the period historians call the phony war. For 8 months, the two sides stare at each other across the border. The French sit safely behind the Maginot Line. The Germans are busy digesting Poland and planning their next move. In Paris, people start to relax. Maybe this war won't be so bad after all. The Germans haven't attacked. Maybe they won't. Maybe Hitler knows he can't break through French defenses. Cafes are full. Life goes on. But in Germany, plans are being made. General Erich von Manstein has an idea. It's risky. It's unconventional. At first, the German high command rejects it, But Hitler likes bold moves. He approves Manstein's plan. The plan is simple in concept, terrifying in execution. Most people expect Germany to attack through Belgium, just like they did in World War I. That's where French and British forces are concentrated. That's where everyone is looking. Manstein's plan calls for a feint through Belgium, a strong attack but not the main one. This attack will draw Allied forces north into Belgium. They'll rush to help the Belgians. They'll think this is the real invasion. Meanwhile, the real attack will come through the Ardennes. When Manstein proposes this, experienced generals laugh. Tanks through the Ardennes? Impossible. The forest is too thick. One damaged vehicle could block the entire column. If the French discover the plan, the German tanks would be sitting ducks, trapped on narrow forest roads with no room to maneuver. But Manstein argues that this is exactly why it will work. The French think it's impossible, so they won't expect it. And if the Germans can get through the forest quickly enough, they'll emerge behind the Maginot Line, behind the French armies rushing north into Belgium. They'll cut France in half. Hitler gives the order. The attack will begin on May 10, 1940. May 10 arrives. At dawn, German forces pour into Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. It's a massive attack. Paratroopers drop from the sky. Gliders land on top of Belgian forts. Dive bombers hit airfields. The world watches in shock as neutral countries are invaded. The French and British react exactly as planned. Their armies rush north into Belgium. This is what they've been preparing for. Finally, a chance to meet the Germans in open battle. The troops are confident. They have good positions. They outnumber the Germans in this sector. This is going to be fine. Except it's not fine. In the Ardennes, 1,800 German tanks are threading through the forest. The column stretches for 100 miles. Vehicles are bumper to bumper on narrow roads. If the French Air Force spotted this column and attacked it, the entire German plan would collapse in disaster. But the French Air Force is busy elsewhere. Their reconnaissance flights have orders to patrol other sectors. The few planes that do fly over the Ardennes report traffic, but French headquarters doesn't believe the reports are significant. Supply columns, they think. Support vehicles. Nothing important. The German column pushes forward, day and night. Drivers are exhausted. Some fall asleep at the wheel. Vehicles break down and are pushed off the road, but they keep moving. On May 13, they emerge from the forest at Sedan. Sedan is a quiet town on the Meuse River. The French have defenses here, but not strong ones. Most of the French army is in Belgium. The soldiers defending Sedan are reserve units, older men, less training. They're not expecting a major attack. They're about to get one. The Germans need to cross the Meuse River. This is the critical moment. If the French can hold the river line, the entire German offensive stalls. The tanks are useless until they get across, and river crossings are incredibly vulnerable. This is where the French can win. The Germans start crossing at 4 p.m., but first comes the air attack. Hundreds of German dive bombers appear in the sky, Stukas. Their sirens wail as they dive. The sound alone is terrifying. Bombs fall continuously. The bombardment goes on for hours. The French defenders have never experienced anything like this. They huddle in their bunkers as the earth shakes. Communications are cut. Officers lose contact with their units. Some soldiers panic and retreat. Others stay and fight. German infantry crosses in rubber boats. They're vulnerable. French machine guns cut down some boats, but there are too many crossing points, too many boats, and the French positions are being hammered by artillery and bombs. The defenders are dazed, disorganized. By nightfall, the Germans have a foothold on the western bank. French commanders order counterattacks. They send in their reserve divisions, but it's chaos. Nobody knows exactly where the Germans are. Communications are spotty. In the dark, French units stumble into German positions and are shot to pieces. By morning on May 14, German engineers have built a pontoon bridge. Now the tanks can cross. This is the moment everything changes. Once those tanks get across the Meuse, there's nothing between them and Paris except open country. The Maginot Line is bypassed. The French armies in Belgium are cut off. French commanders finally realize what's happening. They throw everything they have at Sedan. Bombers attack the bridges, but German anti-aircraft guns are waiting. French planes fall from the sky. Out of 71 bombers sent to attack the bridges, 40 are shot down. The bridges remain intact. The tanks keep crossing. By May 15, German armored divisions are racing west, not towards Paris, west, towards the English Channel. They're moving so fast that even German high command is nervous. The tanks are outrunning their supply lines. They're creating a narrow corridor deep in French territory. If the French counterattack from north and south, they could cut off the entire spearhead. But the French don't counterattack. They can't. Their armies are still in Belgium trying to fight the German forces there. They're getting orders to retreat, but it's too late. The Germans are already behind them. French and British commanders are in shock. Their plans are useless. Everything they prepared for is irrelevant. The war is moving too fast. By the time they get intelligence about German positions, those positions have changed. By the time they issue orders, the situation has evolved. This is Blitzkrieg. This is what it looks like to be on the receiving end. Confusion, chaos, a battle that moves faster than you can think. May 16. The French government begins burning documents in Paris. They're preparing for evacuation. The war is only 6 days old. May 20. German tanks reach the English Channel at Abbeville. In 10 days, they've driven 250 miles through France. The Allied armies in Belgium are cut off, surrounded, trapped. This pocket includes the entire British Expeditionary Force, France's best divisions, Belgian troops, almost 1 million men. If the Germans can destroy this pocket, the war is essentially over. Britain will have lost its army. France will have lost its best troops. The trapped Allied forces retreat towards Dunkirk, a small port city on the French coast. It's their only hope. If they can reach Dunkirk, maybe the British Navy can evacuate them. But German tanks are racing towards Dunkirk too. On May 24, German armor is less than 20 miles from the port. The Allied troops are exhausted, disorganized, running out of ammunition. There's no way they can hold off German tanks. And then Hitler gives one of the most controversial orders of the war. He orders the tanks to halt. To this day, historians debate why. Some say Hitler wanted to let the Luftwaffe finish off the trapped armies. Göring, head of the German Air Force, promised he could destroy the pocket from the air. Some say Hitler was worried his tanks were overextended and needed rest. Some say he believed Britain might negotiate peace if he didn't humiliate them completely. Whatever the reason, the tanks stop. For 3 days, they sit idle while the Allied forces dig in around Dunkirk. This is the miracle the Allies need. During those 3 days, the British organize Operation Dynamo. Every available ship, boat, and vessel is ordered to Dunkirk. Military ships, civilian boats, fishing trawlers, anything that floats. The evacuation begins on May 26. German artillery shells the beaches. Luftwaffe bombers attack constantly, but the evacuation continues. Soldiers wade into the water and climb into boats. Some boats are sunk, but more keep coming. By June 4, over 338,000 Allied soldiers have been evacuated. Britain has saved its army, but they've left behind all their heavy equipment. Tanks, artillery, vehicles, everything. And more importantly, they've left France. France is now alone. The French army still has units in the south. They still have men, but their best troops were in the pocket. Their best equipment is captured or destroyed. Morale is shattered, and the Germans are preparing for the final phase. June 5, the Germans attack south. They call it fall rot. Case read, this is the attack to finish France. The French try to defend the Somme River. It's a good defensive position, but they don't have enough men. There are gaps in the line. The Germans find these gaps and exploit them. Their tanks break through and race south. It's a repeat of what happened in May, but now there's no Allied support, no British forces. France faces Germany alone. The French government evacuates Paris on June 10. They declare Paris an open city, meaning they won't defend it. This is to prevent the city from being destroyed. If Paris is undefended, the Germans have no reason to bomb it. June 14. German soldiers march down the Champs-Élysées. Swastika flags hang from the Eiffel Tower. After 4 years of brutal fighting in World War I, after millions of French deaths, after victory in 1918, Paris falls without a shot fired. The French government retreats to Bordeaux. They're debating what to do. Some want to continue fighting, move the government to North Africa, keep resisting. Others say it's hopeless. France is defeated. It's time to ask for terms. The debate is settled when Marshal Philippe Pétain becomes prime minister. Pétain is a hero from World War I. He's 84 years old, and he believes France must surrender. On June 17, Pétain goes on the radio. He tells France that he has asked Germany for an armistice. The fighting must stop. In his speech, he says the French army fought bravely, but was outnumbered and outgunned. This isn't true. France wasn't outnumbered. They had more tanks, but it doesn't matter anymore. The French people are exhausted. Many are relieved. At least the war is over. June 22, 1940. Hitler chooses the location for the surrender ceremony carefully. It will take place in Compiègne Forest, in the exact same railway car where Germany surrendered to France in 1918. Hitler is making a point. 22 years ago, Germany was humiliated here. Now, France will be humiliated in the same spot. The railway car has been preserved as a museum. Hitler orders it brought out. The French delegation arrives. Hitler is there with his generals. He reads the preamble to the armistice terms. Then he leaves. He doesn't stay for the actual negotiations. He's made his point. The terms are harsh. Germany will occupy northern France and the entire Atlantic coast. The French army will be reduced to 100,000 men. All French prisoners of war will remain in German custody. France will pay the costs of German occupation. The French Navy must be demilitarized. France is split in two. The north is under direct German occupation. The south becomes Vichy France, a puppet state nominally independent but actually controlled by Germany. It's over 6 weeks. That's how long it took. The strongest army in Europe, the Maginot Line, all the preparations, none of it mattered. France suffered 360,000 casualties, 90,000 dead. Germany suffered 49,000 dead. The speed and completeness of the victory shocked the world. In London, a French general named Charles de Gaulle refuses to accept defeat. He goes on BBC radio and tells the French people that this is not the end. France has lost a battle but not the war. He calls on the French to resist, to continue fighting. Most French people don't hear this broadcast, and those who do mostly ignore it. Who is this de Gaulle? Nobody knows him. Pétain is the hero. If Pétain says the war is over, it must be over. But de Gaulle is right. The war isn't over. It's just beginning. Over the next 4 years, France will suffer under German occupation. The resistance will form. French soldiers will fight in North Africa, Italy, and eventually return to liberate their own country. But in June 1940, all of that is in the future. Right now, France is defeated. The swastika flies over Paris, and the world is trying to understand how this happened. So what went wrong? How did the world's most powerful army collapse so quickly? The Maginot Line wasn't useless in itself. It did exactly what it was designed to do. No German soldier ever broke through the Maginot Line by force. The fortresses held. But that's the problem. The Germans simply went around it. They attacked where France was weakest. French military doctrine was stuck in World War I. They believed in static defense, strong positions, slow, methodical warfare. The Maginot Line embodied this thinking: build fortresses, make the enemy come to you, grind them down. But Germany had learned different lessons from World War I. They understood that modern war was about speed and mobility. Concentrate your forces at one point. Break through. Don't stop. Keep moving. Disrupt the enemy's decision-making process. Move faster than they can react. The French had good tanks. Some were better than German tanks, but they spread them out along the front to support infantry. The Germans concentrated their tanks into powerful armored divisions that could smash through any defense. French communications were slow. Orders went through official channels. Everything was documented. By the time a decision reached the front line, the situation had changed. German commanders on the ground had authority to make decisions. They could react immediately. Perhaps most importantly, the French High Command simply couldn't believe what was happening. When reports came in of German tanks at Sedan, they thought it was a mistake. When they realized it wasn't a mistake, they thought it was a diversion. When they finally understood this was the main attack, it was too late. The Germans took incredible risks. Their plan could have failed at a dozen points. If the French had discovered the column in the Ardennes, if the river crossing at Sedan had been stopped, if the French had cut off the German spearhead, any of these could have turned the Blitzkrieg into a disaster. But the Germans were lucky, and they were bold, and they were facing an enemy that had prepared for the wrong war. The fall of France changed everything. With France defeated, Britain stood alone against Nazi Germany. Hitler now controlled Western Europe. The resources of France, Belgium, the Netherlands were at his disposal. He could turn his attention to other targets. Russia, North Africa. The war was going to get much bigger. For France, June 1940 was the beginning of a dark period. 4 years of occupation, collaboration, resistance, deportations. The country was divided against itself, and when liberation finally came in 1944, France had to reckon with what had happened during those years. The Maginot Line still exists. You can visit parts of it today. The massive bunkers, the underground facilities, they're museums now, monuments to a particular way of thinking about war, a reminder that even the strongest defenses are useless if the enemy doesn't attack where you expect. Military historians study the fall of France because it teaches important lessons. Preparing for the last war is a recipe for disaster. Rigid thinking loses to flexible thinking. Speed and initiative can overcome numerical superiority. And sometimes, the most obvious defensive strategy is exactly what you shouldn't do. The French in 1940 had everything they needed to win except the right plan and the right mindset. They were brave. They were well-equipped, but they were outthought and outmaneuvered. In 6 weeks, everything they'd built to prevent another German invasion proved worthless. The Maginot Line stands as one of history's greatest military miscalculations, not because it failed to do its job, but because it did its job perfectly while the real war happened somewhere else. It's a reminder that in war, as in life, you can do everything right and still lose if you're playing the wrong game. Check out the next video to see what happened to France during the occupation.